vanishing folklore and belief.
Fairy Legends and Traditions of the South of Ireland, public domain reading. Fior Usga. A little way beyond the gallows green of Cork, and just outside the town, there is a great lough of water, where people in the winter go and skate for the sake of diversion. But the sport above the water is nothing to what it is under it. For at the very bottom of this lough, there are buildings and gardens, far more beautiful than any now to be seen. And how they came there was in this manner. Long before Saxon foot pressed Irish ground, there was a great king called Cuirtear, whose palace stood where the lough now is, in a round green valley that was just a mile about. In the middle of the courtyard was a spring of fair water, so pure and so clear that it was the wonder of all the world. Much did the king rejoice at having so great a curiosity within his palace. But as people came in crowds from far and near to draw the precious water of this spring, he was sorely afraid that in time it might become dry, so he caused a high wall to be built up around it, and would not allow nobody to have the water, which was a very great loss to the poor people living around the place. Whenever he wanted any for himself, he would send his daughter to get it, not liking to trust his servants with the key of the well door, fearing that they might give some away. One night the king gave a grand entertainment, and there were many great princes present, and lords and nobles without end. And there were wonderful doings throughout the palace. There were bonfires whose blaze reached up to the very sky, and dancing was there to such sweet music that it ought to have waked up the dead out of their graves. And feasting was there in the greatest of plenty for all who came, nor was anyone turned away from the palace gates, but you're welcome heartily, was the porter's salute for all. Now it happened at this grand entertainment that there was a young prince above all the rest, mighty comely to behold, and as tall and as straight as ever eye would wish to look on. Right merrily did he dance that night with the old king's daughter, wheeling here and wheeling there, as light as a feather, and footing it away to the admiration of everyone. The musicians played the better for seeing their dancing, and they danced as if their lives depended upon it. After all this dancing came the supper, and the young prince was seated at the table by the side of his beautiful partner, who smiled upon him as often as he spoke to her. And that was by no means so often as he wished, for he constantly to turn to the company and thank them for the many compliments passed upon his fair partner and himself. In the midst of this banquet, one of the great lords said to King Cuirtear, "May it please your majesty, here is everything in abundance that heart can wish for, both to eat and drink, except water." "Water?" said the king, mightily pleased at someone calling for that of which purposely there was a want. "Water shall you have, my lord, speedily, and that of such a delicious kind that I challenge all the world to equal it. Daughter," said he, "go fetch some in the golden vessel, which I caused to be made for the purpose." The king's daughter, whose name was Fior Usga, which signifies in English spring water, did not much like to be told to perform so menial a service before so many people. And though she did not venture to refuse the commands of her father, yet she hesitated to obey him and looked down upon the ground. The king, who loved his daughter very much, seeing this, was sorry for what he had desired her to do, but having said the word, he was never known to recall it. He therefore thought of a way to make his daughter go speedily and fetch the water, and it was by proposing that the young prince, her partner, should go along with her. Accordingly, with a loud voice, he said, "Daughter, I wonder not at your fearing to go alone so late at night, but I doubt not the young prince at your side will go with you." The prince was not displeased at hearing this, and taking the golden vessel in one hand, with the other led the king's daughter out of the hall, so gracefully that all present gazed after them with delight. When they came to the spring of water in the courtyard of the palace, Fior Usga unlocked the door with the greatest of care, and stooping down with the golden vessel to take some of the water out of the well, found the vessel so heavy that she lost her balance and fell in. The young prince tried in vain to save her, for the water rose and rose so fast that the entire courtyard was speedily covered with it, and he hastened back almost in a state of distraction to the king. The door of the well being left open, the water, which had been so long confined, rejoiced at obtaining its liberty, rushed forth incessantly, every moment rising higher and higher, and was in the hall of the entertainment sooner than the young prince himself, so that when he attempted to speak to the king, he was up to his neck in the water. At length the water rose to such great height that it filled the entire of the green valley in which the king's palace stood, and so the present Lough of Cork was formed. Yet the king and his guests were not drowned, as would now happen, if such an awful inundation were to take place. Neither was his daughter, the Fior Usga, who returned to the banquet hall the very next night, after this dreadful event. And every night since, the same entertainment and dancing goes on in the palace at the bottom of the Lough, and will last until someone has the luck to bring up out of it the golden vessel, which was the cause of all this mischief. Nobody can doubt that it was a judgment upon the king for his shutting up the well in the courtyard from the poor people. And if there are any who do not credit my story, they may go and see the Lough of Cork, for there it is to be seen to this day. The road to Kinsale passes at one side of it, and when its waters are low and clear, the tops of towers and stately buildings may be plainly viewed in the bottom by those who have good eyesight without the help of spectacles.
Vanishing folklore and belief.